Hello, I'm Vincent McCory.
And I'm Alex Villarreal. You're watching In Focus. Dimyake Mwakaliele is off today.
We begin with the climate change talks in Copenhagen, where developing nations have thrown the UN-sponsored talks into disarray.
Representatives from some of the world's poorer countries walked out on negotiations Monday. They were angered by weakening support for a key treaty to curb greenhouse gas emissions. Developing nations, many in Africa, want to extend the Kyoto Protocol, but that approach does not have the support of rich countries.
VOA's Sonja has been covering the climate talks and joins us from London right now. Sonja, developing nations now have walked out on the talks. Tell us, what are the implications of this walkout?
Well, I think what we're seeing here is a show of real frustration. And it's also upping the ante a little bit, if you will. Remember, we're now in the second week. Last week we had proposals on the table, discussions, negotiations. This is the final week. At the end of this week, everybody's hoping there's going to be an agreement to sign. African countries, the less developed countries, wanted to make a point.
Now tell us, what is the point they wanted to make? Some people may want to know, what is the walkout all about?
Well, the heart of the issue is there are two things. There's the Kyoto Protocol, remember, signed in 1997. And what that did is it obligated the developed countries, the rich nations, to cut emissions. It did not obligate the poorer countries, the developing nations that signed on to this. What African countries, what the less developed countries want is an extension of the Kyoto Protocol, because Kyoto expires actually in 2012. They would like to see an extension, and they want that as one accord, one agreement. Then they say, let's have a separate agreement where we look at the longer vision, where both the developing countries and the developed countries have to do more for the longer term. The rich countries, on the other hand, would prefer they say Kyoto's expiring anyway, let's just come up with a new accord, a new agreement that we can all sign on to, where everybody does something, where the rich nations do something, the heavily industrialized nations do something, but also the developing nations. Of course, the developing nations, and certainly the poorest countries, argue we're so limited in what we can do. I mean, if you look at Africa, it's already plagued with drought and natural catastrophes, etc., plus poverty. They're saying we can't really participate in this. We need a lot more help.
Now,
this is where the bargaining comes in.
Now, talking about the bargaining, looking at all those arguments on both aisles, tell us, is there a possibility of a compromise position?
There's going to have to be. I mean, I don't think, and if you talk to the experts, the delegates, the activists, the environmentalists there's obviously got to be room for compromise, and that's what people are going to be looking for this week. It can't really realistically be one position or the other. This is upping the ante. What they want to do now, remember, these talks are now moving into a higher level, if you will, because the ministers are there. Ministers are starting to work. Then at the end of this week, we've got the heads of state and government coming. The push is on now to come up with an agreement, and it has to be amenable for everybody.
You know, thank you very much, Sonja, for giving us those insights. That's Sonja Pace of Voice of America from London.